It's time to lock in my Game Week 35 team selection, and the big questions going in today's video is, should we be selling Bukayo Saka? Who is the best captaincy pick? And of course, what is the latest update regarding these double and blank game weeks? We're going to cover that all in today's video. So as always, if you're looking forward to it, make sure you do drop a like and of course, hit that subscribe button for daily fantasy content. Enough waffling, let's get into today's video. So first up, just a super quick reminder of how Game Week 34 went for my team, just to add a little bit of context to today's team selection video. So I activated my free hit in Game Week 34. I'm all out for 88 points, but of course we still have the Forest Brentford game to happen. Chris Wood and in particular Mbeumo could hurt this green arrow, but 39k, a significant green arrow. I'm hoping to stay around 45k off the back of that Forest game. Of course, the standout players were Sessegnon with a last-minute goal, Nori and Cunha, and a few other decent returns alongside that. But of course, 88 points I'm delighted with. And going into Game Week 35, I have one free transfer and 1.5 million in the bank. But of course, I don't have half of these players that you can see on the screen because, of course, they are free hit players. So again, let me know in the comment section how many points you scored in Game Week 34 and how many maybe you're hoping for in tonight's game. But let's take a look, of course, ahead of Game Week 35. So when we get ourselves to the business end of the season, the fixtures, the motivation are so important when we're making those precious transfers. If you take my team as an example, I've got one free transfer available. I can't be using it on a team that I think could rotate because of Europa League or Conference League, Champions League football. Or also I can't be buying into teams that I deem just have nothing necessarily to play for. Now, I covered this off over on my transfer plans video, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, of course, for those that are maybe watching this alongside that one. Thank you so much for the support. But I wanted to quickly cover off the updates of what we've had regarding Arsenal and a potential double game week in 36, the odds of that. So first up, I covered why I'm not looking to invest in Arsenal anytime soon. They've just had the first leg against PSG before the Bournemouth game. They're now going to play on the weekend, and of course, second leg midweek 1-0 down playing in Paris. That is just a recipe for disaster for these Arsenal assets. Now, could they rock up and play against Bournemouth, get a 0-0, walk away, happy days? They could. But I don't really think it is worth taking that risk necessarily for managers, especially in the shape of Bukayo Saka. I'm going to put up here a graphic from Rob TFPL. Always talk about him. Make sure you follow over on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm sure you do already. These are basically the market odds for Arsenal versus Bournemouth. And you can see how they have slowly started to creep down each and every day. Previously, it was around 70% odds of winning against Bournemouth. Each day, they had the draw against Palace. That started to drop. Then, of course, they had the loss against PSG, and you can now see that's down to 46%. And the reason being is because, of course, rotation. I think we're all anticipating significant rotation in this Arsenal team because they have no reason not to. Why would you be rolling out Bukayo Saka 90 minutes in the first leg? They're going to play 70 minutes in this Bournemouth game and then rock him for another 90 in the second leg. It just isn't going to happen in my eyes. So I really think managers need to tread carefully with Arsenal. And I think to the extent where you might not even have to play your double Arsenal defence. I'm in that position right now and deliberating it. Outside of Arsenal, the other thing that we need to talk about, of course, is the potential double game week in 36. Now, we got this tweet here from Aston Villa correspondents that are stating that Spurs originally asked for their fixture to be brought forward effectively into game week 36, and Aston Villa have basically said, nah, you're all right. Villa only have the Premier League to play for. Why would they allow a fixture change that benefits their opposition? And I totally get that. So it looks like the potential of a double in 36 based on a fixture being brought forward in this circumstance isn't going to happen. We've also got this update from Ben Krellin, but again, no real confirmation right now. And it's another reason why to hold off on any early transfers is that we could get some doubles in 36, but the understanding is, would we be surprised if there is no double game week in 36? We wouldn't at all. So what I'm trying to say is this. I really think it's important if you're trying to make a transfer, but for the sake of a transfer, just hold off. There's no reason to do so. You're likely going to be buying the likes of Mbeumo and Vissa, and they play tonight. Don't take the risk of buying them prior to actually featuring. And then after that, of course, we got a Friday deadline. So we're going to get potential Man City early team news and a potential double game week announcement, if anything. All those things added together just means you shouldn't be making an early transfer. But what it does mean for myself is that going into game week 35, if we don't get any news about a double game week or a blank game week, investing in the teams that I know, regardless of an announcement, are still great buys. And that is going to include the likes of Brentford and Brian Mbeumo, Vissa, those kind of players. So I just want to give you a quick update on what's happening. If you want a bit more detail on these sort of scenarios, make sure you check out my transfer plan video. So I think it's right to get straight into my game week 35 team selection, and kicking off with the goalkeepers, I actually do have a deliberation here. I've currently got Raya at home against Bournemouth, but as I've spoken about, I'm anticipating rotation in that Arsenal team, and not necessarily a lack of motivation, but not necessarily the best Arsenal team that we can ask for. Whereas Aston Villa chasing Champions League football, they have full motivation going into this game. I think Fulham are a really good team, but do I back Aston Villa to win that game? I do. However, my circumstance is a little bit different because, as you can see in my defence, I also have an Arsenal and Aston Villa defender. So yes, it is a little bit boring, but I'm going to pick one of each. I'm going to pick Raya between the sticks just to cover off that Arsenal ownership, just in case they do keep a clean sheet. And then we're going to lean towards Konsa at home against Fulham. I don't love the idea of double Arsenal defence this week. I actually don't mind Aston Villa in this game. I don't think it's great, but I do think having a piece of Aston Villa is worthwhile. So Raya and Konsa is going to be my combination as opposed to Martinez and Kivior. Then we got Vardiel at home against Wolves, which I think is perfectly fine. Wolves have been in a great run of form right now, and I still don't think Man City are defensively sound. So I don't think by any means a clean sheet is locked in this scenario. But when we're comparing that to Kivior or Livramento away against Brighton, it's a bit of a no-brainer that Vardiel starts. And I do think between now and the end of the season, his minutes are pretty much locked in. The only downside regarding Vardiel is that the emergence of Matt O'Reilly means that Vardiel is basically playing as a centre-back. And while he does have some attacking threat from set pieces, we've lost that overlapping Vardiel that we previously had in seasons gone by. Other one is going to be Munoz at home against Forest. Now, again, I don't love the fixture, but the reason why it could be in the favour of Palace assets is that Nottingham Forest are playing on the Thursday night. So we are going to see a bit of a fresher Palace team off the back of the FA Cup semi-final victory. I hope we just get a good Palace team here because, as you'll see through my team selection, I am hedging on a Palace win, and that basically will dictate whether this is a good or a great game week or a terrible one. So moving into the game week 35 midfielders, and as you can see, my intention is to sell Bukayo Saka and bring in Brian Mbeumo. Now, I want to say that regarding Mbeumo, I think he's a fantastic buy at home against Man United, who of course have the first leg of Europa League. We don't know the result of that yet. I think we're all anticipating a rotated team against Brentford because then of course they have to back themselves in that second leg of the Europa League. So this is a great game for Brentford assets. The only downside, and not a lot of people are talking about it, is Brentford still have to play Thursday night. So it's not necessarily like they've got a fresh Brentford team. But do I think Man United are just going to be really bad? And the answer is going to be yes. And as I spoke about Bukayo Saka, I think this is a rotation game against Bournemouth. I think Liverpool away isn't fantastic. Then, of course, they got Newcastle at home with Southampton away on the final day of the season. Would I love to keep Saka in my team? Absolutely. But do I think Brian Mbeumo is more of a priority? Yes. That is simple as that. I think he's more of a priority than Bukayo Saka between now and the end of the season. So for that reason, I'm not going to overthink it. Saka to Mbeumo will happen as long as he gets through the Forest game perfectly unscathed. Outside of that, I think the rest of the midfielders select themselves. Salah away against Chelsea is a no-brainer, but of course we will have a captaincy discussion at the end of this video. Ismaila Sarr at home against Forest. Now again, I'm not getting ahead of myself. Sarr was brilliant in that FA Cup semi-final, but has he been on the periphery in other games? 100%. And Forest with their low block might not give the opportunities for Palace in those transitional stages. So I'm not expecting a lot from Sarr myself, but should I start him? I think the answer is yes. And then we got Morgan Rogers at home against Fulham. Again, I'm back in Aston Villa just to chase down these Champions League spots, and I'm hoping Rogers, which he will, by the way, start, gets a few attacking returns. The only real deliberation for my midfielders is what do I do with Savinho? I think it's quite clear that we could get some Man City team news before the deadline, which of course is on the Friday. So if we get the news that Savinho is starting, and of course I have to paint that narrative in my head, do I take out any of these midfielders? Because Wolves at home isn't a terrible fixture. And I look at my midfielders available to me right now. Salah away against Chelsea, I'm not taking him out. I'm not taking Saka out necessarily, and I don't think I've taken Rodgers. So the only other deliberation is, do I just bench Saka and not buy Mbeumo? And again, I don't think the answer is yes. So with all that said, if we get the news that Savinho is starting, I still think I'm probably going to bench him, which I don't love the idea, but I think I prefer the other four in terms of guaranteed minutes. Take a look at my game week 35 forwards, and again, no real deliberation here. Mateta at home against hopefully a slightly tired Forest team. If they play that low block, yes, it might hinder Sarr. I don't think it necessarily hinders Mateta, so I do like him for this game week. But it's worth noting that I think there is a time where Mateta will get sold in my team. With Chris Wood having a good fixture in game week 36 at home against Leicester, this might be the final hurrah for Mateta, unless we get some sort of double game week announcement. So hopefully he can leave the team with some points, fingers crossed. Then we got Alexander Isak away against Brighton. I mean, I just don't look at the fixtures for Isak. Whatever game it is, he's playing. The big thing, of course, is captaincy, which we will touch on. And then we got MARMOUSH at home against Wolves. Now, there are a few alarm bells ringing because Haaland has returned to training. Are we going to see Haaland rushed back into this Man City team? I think the answer is no. And I think MARMOUSH is obviously fine for this game week. But game week 36 and beyond, we could be a little bit concerned if we were to see Haaland back in the team. Does that mean MARMOUSH sticks in the team off the left-hand side, or does he get directly replaced by Haaland? I would like to think MARMOUSH just stays in the team, just operates in a different position. And we've seen Haaland being in the team, taking away some of the defenders might enhance MARMOUSH as a pick. So just be cautious of MARMOUSH going forward. But for this game week in isolation, he is perfectly fine and definitely in the debate for captaincy. So I think we're getting the general consensus here that game week 35 doesn't feel fantastic. We always, each and every week, look at who Leicester have, look who Southampton have, and basically buy those players. But unfortunately, it's one of those weeks where Leicester play Southampton. So we don't have that luxury. Hence why the fixtures this week look okay. No big teams playing another big team apart from Liverpool, but they also aren't incredible. It's very much middle team versus middle team in the league. So captaincy feels huge this week because if it is going to be a little bit of a low scoring week, the captaincy can really swing it in your favour and probably will be the difference between a red and a green arrow for a lot of managers in the top 100k. Now, I would like to think that going into this week, I probably do have the best captaincy picks available in my team. I would argue for those managers out there that have an Ollie Watkins, that could be a brilliant captaincy pick. At home against Fulham, with the injury to Marcus Rashford, we know Watkins is locked in for game time. I do like him as a differential, but I'm conscious that a lot of people out there don't own Watkins because of what has happened over the last few months. So when we look at the standout picks, we got Bryan Mbeumo at home against a Man United team that will be rotated from their Europa League first leg. Mo Salah away against Chelsea. We got Alexander Isak away against Brighton. And we got MARMOUSH at home against Wolves. Looking at the rest of the fixtures, I really don't think there are any other standout picks. So I think those four are going to be the ones up for grabs. Now, if you are playing safe, yes, I still think Mo Salah is a perfectly fine pick. I don't love the fixture, and that's coming from a Chelsea fan. I think Chelsea are very ropey defensively, but them chasing Champions League, I've spoke about this in a previous video. I think it would be a classic case of Liverpool be a little bit title winning hungover, not actually alcoholic hungover, just generally mentally. But I don't think Chelsea are going to be good enough to capitalise on that against Liverpool. So it's just going to be a very stale game. I might be wrong, but I think it's going to be like a 1-1 or something. So I don't think the ceiling for Mo Salah is significant. So I'm personally not putting Mo Salah in the captaincy debate. But if you are looking to consolidate rank, then yes, I think Salah is fine. But I would argue that of the active managers, they're actually going to lean towards the other three, Mbeumo, MARMOUSH or Isak. So the pros of Mbeumo are, of course, he plays against a rotated Man United team. He's the talisman and he's on penalties. The only downside about Mbeumo is that he, of course, plays on Thursday. So people, as I've spoken about, aren't talking about maybe the slight fatigue on these Brentford players. Even though they're playing against a rotated Man United team, it will be a fresh Man United team if these are rotated players. So just consider that. Isak against Brighton probably isn't spoken about enough. Brighton have conceded 8 goals in their last 3 games. Defensively are quite poor. Yes, they are chasing some sort of outside Europa spot or Conference League spot. Meanwhile, Newcastle chasing down top 5 confirmation. So I really do think Isak is an underrated pick this week. And then we got Marmoush at home against Wolves, who have been very good under Vita Pereira and are on 6 wins on the bounce. Man City, on the other hand, I do believe are not necessarily back, but are playing more consistent football, I believe. And I do think Marmoush is still a fantastic pick. So, right now, my captaincy is on Marmoush. However, if we get through the Brentford game, Brentford look good, Mbeumo pass is fit, then I could see myself closer to the deadline moving that to Bryan Mbeumo. Guaranteed on penalties, guaranteed game time, and of course being a midfielder who gets an additional point for a goal and clean sheet. I'm always looking for a captain in the midfield department. And I do think he will be the standout pick this week. So as of right now, it is on Marmoush. However, when we come to the Friday deadline live stream, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that does shift to Bryan Mbeumo. Isak, I would love to go there, but something in the back of my mind is just saying that is going to be a bit of a dodgy fixture for Newcastle. That is just a personal opinion. Do not be making your own decisions based on that. Let me know in the comment section who is going to be your captain. Yes, guys, okay, that is going to wrap up today's Game Week 35 team selection video. As I mentioned, I'm pretty much locked in on that transfer. I just need to see Mbeumo get through that game against Nottingham Forest. As always, if you have any questions, please do pop them in the comment section. And I will be doing a deadline live stream on Friday, remember, but ahead of that Man City Wolves game. So we might get some early Man City team news, so make sure you do stick around for that. If you enjoyed the video, please do consider dropping a like and, of course, hitting that subscribe button. And I'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Cheers.